They called it the Ithran, the beast that could not be broken. For 300 years it had lived in the depths beneath Castle Keldrath, chained in shadow, fed on blood and silence. Every handler sent to tame it had been returned in pieces. Every warrior who dared approach had died screaming. The creature bowed to no one, not to chains, not to magic, not even to the Alpha King himself. So when Valdric, ruler of Keldrath, dragged a half-starved Omega from a slave auction and threw her into the pit, no one expected her to survive the night. Sena had nothing. No name worth claiming. No pack that wanted her. No future beyond the one being carved out by the men who bought and sold her like grain. She had only one thing, a gift so forbidden that her own father had tried to burn it out of her. She could speak to beasts, not with words as humans understood them, with something deeper, something ancient. A single sound that reached into the primal heart of any creature and commanded it to listen. When the Ithran lunged from the darkness, jaws wide enough to swallow her whole, Sena did not scream. She did not run. She whispered one word, and the beast that had killed 100 men fell to its knees before her. Above the pit, the Alpha King watched with eyes like winter storms. He had brought her here to die. Instead, she had done the impossible. Now he would offer her a bargain. She would stay in his castle. She would control his beast. She would be given food, shelter, protection. But she would never be his equal, never be his queen, never be anything more than a tool. "You will serve me," he said coldly, "but I will never want you." Neither of them understood how impossible that vow would become. The auction block smelled of sweat and desperation. Sena stood at the edge of the platform, her wrists raw from the rope that bound them, her body hollow from days without food. Around her, other Omegas wept or pleaded or stared at nothing, each of them broken in their own particular way. This was not a place for mates. This was a place for labor, for bodies to be used until they wore out. The men who prowled below the platform did not look at faces. They looked at teeth, at hands, at the width of hips meant for bearing children who would also become property. Sena kept her head down. She had learned long ago that being seen was dangerous. Her father, Brennick Vale, had taught her that lesson with fire. The brand on her shoulder blade still ached when the weather turned cold. A jagged mark in the shape of a beast's eye, the sign of a cursed wolf, one whose gifts were too dangerous to be allowed. Brennick had held her down himself while the iron seared her skin. "You are an abomination," he had told her, his voice flat with disgust. "If anyone discovers what you can do, they will kill you. Or worse, they will use you." He had been right about one thing. Someone had discovered her. The auctioneer's voice droned on, selling a young Omega with childbearing hips to a merchant who would work her until she broke. Then an older woman went to a textile mill. Then a male Omega, thin and trembling, was purchased for purposes Sena did not want to imagine. Then it was her turn. "Lot 73, the auctioneer announced without enthusiasm. "Female Omega, approximately 20 winters. No remarkable qualities. Previous owner claims she is—" He paused, squinting at his notes. "Cursed. Starting bid, 3 coppers. Silence. Sena felt the familiar weight of rejection settle into her bones. Even here, among the unwanted, she was worth nothing. Brennick had made certain of that. He had spread whispers about her curse, ensured that no pack would take her. No alpha would claim her. 2 coppers, someone called out, sounding bored. 1 copper, another countered, laughing. The crowd joined the laughter. Sena's face burned, but she did not let herself react. She had survived worse than humiliation. Then the great doors at the far end of the hall slammed open. Every head turned. Every voice died. The man who entered did not walk as much as command the space around him to yield. He was tall, taller than any Alpha Senya had seen, with hair the color of midnight and eyes like frost on steel. He wore black from throat to boot, and the power that rolled off him was suffocating. "The king," someone whispered, "the Alpha King himself." Senya's heart stopped. She had heard stories about Valdric of Keldrath. They said he had killed his own father to take the throne. They said his touch could freeze blood in the veins. They said he kept a monster beneath his castle, a creature so terrible that he fed it anyone who displeased him. What could an Alpha King possibly want at a slave auction? Valdric's gaze swept the platform. It passed over the weeping women, the broken men, the hollow shells of wolves who had given up hope. Then it stopped on Senya. She felt that look like a physical blow. Cold, assessing, utterly without mercy. "That one," he said. The auctioneer stammered. Your Majesty, she is worthless, cursed. She has no skills. No. I said that one." Valdric's voice did not rise, but something in it made the temperature drop. "Unless you wish to argue with your king." The auctioneer fell silent. Guards moved forward, cutting Senya's bonds, dragging her off the platform. She stumbled, nearly fell, and caught herself only to find the Alpha King standing directly before her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. His skin was pale as marble, and when his fingers gripped her chin, forcing her face up to meet his gaze, his touch was ice. "They tell me you speak to beasts," he said quietly. "They tell me you have a gift that cannot be explained." Senya's blood went cold. How did he know? Who had told him? Her father. It had to be. One final act of cruelty, selling her secret to the most dangerous man in the realm. "I have a beast that needs speaking to," Valdric continued. "You will come with me. You will do what I require. And if you fail—" He released her chin, stepping back. "You will not be returning." Senya understood the threat perfectly. This was not a rescue. This was an execution with extra steps. But what choice did she have? The alternative was the auction block, the slow death of being ground down by labor or violence or despair. "I understand," she said quietly. Valdric's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that she had not begged or wept. "Good," he said. "Then let us see if the stories about you are true." He turned and walked toward the doors. Senya followed, flanked by guards, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Behind her, the auction continued as if nothing had happened. Another Omega sold, another life discarded. But Senya could not shake the feeling that she was walking toward something far worse than slavery. She was walking toward a monster. The castle rose from the frozen cliffs like a fang of black stone. Senya watched it grow larger through the window of the carriage, her stomach tightening with every turn of the wheels. Castle Keldrath was nothing like the warm wooden halls of the pack she had grown up in. This was a fortress built for war, its towers sharp against the gray sky, its walls thick enough to withstand siege. No, not a fortress. A prison. The carriage passed through iron gates that groaned as they opened, then slammed shut behind her with a finality that made her flinch. Guards lined the courtyard, their faces hard, and their eyes following her with open suspicion. She was not a guest. She was cargo. When the carriage door opened, a blast of cold air hit Senya like a slap. She stepped down onto frost-covered stone, her thin shoes doing nothing to protect her from the chill. The guards formed a corridor, and she walked through it with her head down, trying not to shiver. The great hall was warmer, but no less oppressive. Massive fireplaces lined the walls, flames roaring inside them, yet the heat seemed unable to fully penetrate the space. Something about this castle resisted warmth. Or someone. Valdric waited at the far end of the hall, seated on a throne carved from black wood. He had not changed from the auction, still dressed in black, still radiating that terrible, cold authority. "Bring her forward," he said. The guards pushed Sena until she stood at the base of the dais. She kept her eyes lowered, but she could feel his gaze on her, heavy as chains. "Do you know why you are here?" Valdric asked. "To die," Sena said quietly. "In the jaws of your beast." A murmur rippled through the guards. No one spoke to the Alpha King with such bluntness, but Valdric's expression did not change. "You believe I purchased you simply to feed you to the Ithran? Is that not what you do with prisoners? With enemies?" Sena lifted her head, meeting his gaze despite the fear screaming at her to look away. "I am not naive, Your Majesty. You did not save me out of kindness." For a long moment, Valdric simply looked at her. Then, unexpectedly, his lips curved into something that was almost a smile. "No," he agreed. "I did not." He rose from the throne, descending the steps with slow, deliberate strides. Each footfall echoed through the hall. When he reached her, he circled her once, studying her as if she were a horse he was considering purchasing. "The Ithran is not an ordinary beast," he said. "It has lived beneath this castle for 3 centuries. It is bound to my bloodline by magic older than the kingdom itself, and for the past year, it has been trying to kill me." Sena's breath caught. "Trying to kill you? Why?" "If I knew that, I would not need you." Valdric stopped in front of her, his pale eyes boring into hers. "The creature has gone mad. It killed its previous handler. It killed the 6 handlers before that. Every warrior I send into that pit returns in pieces. Every mage who attempts to bind it loses their mind." He leaned closer, and Sena felt the cold radiating from his skin, unnatural and absolute. "But you," he said softly, "can speak to it. Or so your father claimed when he sold your secret." Brennick Vielle. Even from a distance he found ways to destroy her. "What do you want from me?" Sena asked. "I want you to go into that pit," Valdric said. "I want you to calm the beast. And if you can do that, if you can make it bow, I will give you something you have never had." "And what is that?" "A place," he said. "Food, shelter, protection. You will live in this castle. You will tend to the Ithran. You will have a purpose." It sounded almost generous, but Sena had learned long ago that nothing given by powerful men came without a price. "And if I refuse? Then you return to the auction block." Valdric's voice was flat. "And we both know what awaits you there." Sena swallowed hard. The choice was no choice at all. Die quickly in the beast's jaws, or die slowly in a life of servitude elsewhere. At least this way, she might have a chance. "I accept," she said. Valdric nodded as if he had expected nothing less. "Good. But understand this clearly, Omega. You are not a guest in my castle. You are not a member of my court. You are a tool. Nothing more. You will serve your function, and when your function is complete, you will leave. I do not want your gratitude. I do not want your loyalty. And I certainly do not want you." The words should have stung, but Sena had been told she was worthless so many times that the insult barely registered. "I understand," she said. "Do you?" Valdric tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You do not weep. You do not beg. You do not seem afraid. Would any of that change my situation? No. Then what purpose would it serve?" Sena met his gaze steadily. "I have nothing left to lose, Your Majesty. That makes fear rather pointless." Something shifted in Valdric's expression. It was gone too quickly for her to identify, but for a single moment she saw surprise flicker behind those frozen eyes. He turned away sharply. "Take her to the pit. Let us see if the stories about her are true." The guards seized her arms, dragging her toward a heavy iron door set into the stone floor. As they descended into darkness, Sena heard something that made her blood turn to ice. A roar, deep and hollow and hungry. The Ithran was waiting. The pit was older than the castle itself. Sena could feel it in the stone, ancient, worn smooth by centuries of blood and screaming. Torches lined the walls, casting flickering shadows that seemed to move with intention. The air was thick with the smell of iron and rot and something else. Something primal that made her wolf whimper in the back of her mind. The guards stopped at the edge of a massive iron grate. Beyond it, darkness pooled like water, so complete that the torchlight could not penetrate more than a few feet. "In you go," one of the guards said, unlocking the grate with a heavy key. Sena peered into the blackness. "No chains? No weapons?" The guard laughed. "Chains would just make you easier to catch. And weapons?" He shook his head. "The last handler had a sword. We found his hand still gripping it 3 days later. Just the hand." Sena's stomach lurched, but she forced herself to breathe. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. The grate swung open with a screech of rusted hinges. The guards shoved her forward, and she stumbled into the pit, catching herself against cold stone. Behind her, the grate slammed shut with a finality that echoed in her chest. For a moment, there was silence. Then she heard it. A slow, heavy breath. The scrape of claws against rock. Movement in the darkness, circling, assessing. The Ithrin was enormous. She could not see it yet, but she could feel its presence pressing against her senses like a physical weight. This was not a wolf, or a bear, or any creature she had ever encountered. This was something else entirely. Something forged from shadow and rage and an intelligence that had nothing to do with instinct. "I know you can understand me," Sena said quietly into the darkness. "I know you are not mindless." The breathing stopped. Then, slowly, the creature emerged. It was lupine in shape but wrong in every proportion. Its body was massive, twice the size of any alpha in wolf form, and covered in scales that gleamed like oil in the torchlight. Its eyes were twin furnaces of molten gold, burning with hatred so intense that Sena felt it like heat against her skin. And its chains. Sena's heart clenched. The beast was wrapped in iron, heavy links embedded into its flesh where the scales had been torn away. Some of the wounds were old, scarred over. Others were fresh, weeping dark blood. It had been tortured. For centuries, it had been tortured. "What did they do to you?" she whispered. The Ithrin's lips peeled back, revealing teeth as long as her forearm. A growl rumbled from its chest, so deep she felt it in her bones. Death. The word slammed into her mind like a fist. Not sound, meaning. Raw and primal and utterly furious. Death to all who chain me, death to the bloodline, death to— "I am not here to chain you," Sena said quickly. "I am not one of them." The creature paused, its burning eyes fixed on her with terrible focus. "Liar. You serve the frozen king." "I serve no one," Sena said. "I was sold here, bought like cattle, just like you were bound here against your will." The Ithrin went still. In the flickering torchlight, Sena saw something shift in its gaze. Not trust. That would take far more than words. But curiosity. The faintest crack in its wall of rage. "What are you?" Sena exhaled slowly. This was the moment. The gift her father had tried to burn out of her. The curse that had destroyed her life. Now it was the only thing keeping her alive. She opened her mouth and spoke the word. It was not a word in any human language. It was older than speech, older than wolves themselves. A single sound that bypassed the ears entirely and resonated in the deepest part of any beast's soul. The word meant, "I see you, I honor you. You are not alone." The effect was immediate. The Ithrin's massive body shuddered. Its golden eyes widened. The growl died in its throat. And then, slowly, impossibly, it lowered its great head to the stone. It bowed. Above the pit, someone sucked in a sharp breath. Senya looked up to see Valdric standing at the edge of the grate, his pale face illuminated by torchlight. He was staring at her with an expression she could not read. Shock. Suspicion. And beneath it, something that looked almost like fear. "What did you do?" he demanded. "What did you say to it?" Senya rose to her feet, her legs trembling but her voice steady. "I spoke to it, like a living thing instead of a monster. That creature has killed 100 men. It bows to no one. It bowed to me." The words hung in the air between them. Valdric's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the iron bars of the grate, and where his fingers touched the metal, frost spread in delicate spirals. He was afraid of her. Senya realized it with a jolt of surprise. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the realm, was afraid of what she represented. She had done something he could not do. She had tamed the untamable. "Bring her up," Valdric said finally, his voice cold. "Now." The guards scrambled to obey, hauling her out of the pit with rough hands. Senya's knees nearly buckled when she reached solid ground, but she forced herself to stand straight. Valdric approached her slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. Up close she could see the frost clinging to his lashes, the unnatural pallor of his skin. Something was wrong with him. Something beyond mere coldness. "You will tell me exactly what you did," he said quietly. "You will tell me what you are." "I am what you bought me to be," Senya replied. "A beast tamer. Nothing more." "Liar." The word was soft but sharp. "That creature has been trying to kill me for a year. It has fought every handler, every chain, and every command. And in 30 seconds, you made it kneel." Senya held his gaze. "Perhaps because I did not try to dominate it. Perhaps because I listened to it instead." Valdric's eyes narrowed. "Listened? To what?" "To its pain." Senya's voice dropped. "Whatever bond it has to your bloodline, it has been twisted, corrupted. The Ithran is not trying to kill you because it hates you. It is trying to kill you because it is dying, and it believes you are the cause." The words landed like stones in still water. Valdric's expression flickered. Rage, denial, and beneath it, a crack of something vulnerable. He knew. Senya saw it in his eyes. Whatever was happening to the beast was connected to him, and he knew it. "You will speak of this to no one," Valdric said finally. "Not to the guards, not to the servants, not to anyone in this castle." "And if I do?" He leaned closer, and the cold that radiated from him was so intense that Senya's breath turned to fog. "Then I will throw you back into that pit," he murmured, "and I will not let you speak before it tears you apart." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the corridor. Senya watched him go, her heart pounding. She should have been terrified. She should have been planning her escape. Instead, she was thinking about the frost on his lashes, the way his hand had trembled when he gripped the iron bars, the flash of something raw and broken behind his frozen mask. He is dying too, she realized, just like the beast. The question was, did he know it? They gave her a room in the East Tower. It was small, barely larger than the cell she had occupied at her father's estate. But it was warm. A fire burned in the hearth, tended by servants who came and went without meeting her eyes, a bed with clean linens, a window that overlooked the frozen mountains beyond the castle walls. It was more than Senya had possessed in years. She should have been grateful. Instead, she lay awake that first night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind howl against the stone. Somewhere far below her, the Ithran stirred in its pit. She could feel it, a faint pulse at the edge of her consciousness, like a second heartbeat. The connection had not faded when she left the pit. If anything, it had grown stronger. "What are you?" the beast had asked her. She still did not know how to answer. The days that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Each morning, Senya descended into the pit. Each morning, the Ithran waited for her, not with the killing rage it showed everyone else, but with something closer to expectation. She did not try to command it. She did not try to bind it with magic or chains. She simply sat with it in the darkness, speaking softly, listening to the fragments of thought and memory it shared with her. The creature was ancient. It remembered kings who had ruled before Valdric's great-grandfather was born. It remembered a time when the bond between beast and bloodline had been one of partnership, not imprisonment. They broke the pact, it told her, its voice a rumble in her mind. Generations ago, they twisted the bond, made us slaves instead of guardians. What was the original pact? Sena asked. Balance. The beast gives strength to the king gives purpose to the beast. Neither dominates, neither serves. And now? Now there is only chains, only pain, only the slow death of being forgotten. Senya's heart ached for the creature. She understood that kind of death, the erosion of self that came from being treated as less than nothing. I will not forget you, she promised quietly. I will not let them forget you. The Ithran's golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Why do you care, small wolf? You owe us nothing. Because someone should, Sena said simply. Because you deserve to be seen as more than a monster. The beast was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, it lowered its massive head and rested it on its paws, its eyes never leaving her face. It was trust. Fragile and tentative, but real. Above the pit, unseen by Sena, Valdric watched from the shadows. He had come every day since she arrived. He told himself it was surveillance, ensuring that his new acquisition did not attempt to escape or turn the beast against him. But the truth was more complicated than that. He could not stop watching her. She was nothing like the handlers who had come before. No bravado, no weapons, no desperate attempts to establish dominance. She simply sat with the creature as if it were a wounded animal rather than a monster that had killed 100 men. And the Ithran responded to her. Not with submission born of fear, but with something that looked almost like devotion. It made no sense. It defied everything Valdric understood about power and control. It terrified him. That evening, he found himself standing outside her door. He had not planned to come. His feet had carried him here without his permission, drawn by something he could not name. For a long moment, he simply stood there, his hand raised to knock, frozen by indecision. Then the door opened. Sena stood in the doorway, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes widening slightly when she saw him. Your Majesty, she said, is something wrong? Everything, Valdric thought. Everything is wrong. I wanted to inquire about your progress, he said stiffly. With the beast. At this hour? It was nearly midnight. The question was reasonable. Valdric had no reasonable answer. May I come in? He asked instead. Sena studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. Her room was warm, far warmer than the rest of the castle. She had built the fire high, and the heat wrapped around Valdric like an embrace. He was not accustomed to warmth. His body ran cold in ways that had nothing to do with the weather. The Ithran is calmer, Sena said, watching him carefully. It speaks to me now. Shares memories. Speaks to you? Valdric turned sharply. The creature cannot speak. Not with words, with impressions, feelings, images. Sena hesitated. It remembers things from before. From when the bond between beast and king was different. Valdric's jaw tightened. The bond has always been as it is now. Has it? Sena's voice was soft, but steady. Then why is the Ithran dying? Why are you? The question hit him like a blow to the chest. He took a step back, his face going pale. You know nothing about me, he said coldly. I know that you are freezing from the inside out, Sena replied. I can feel it when you stand near me, the cold that comes off you. It is not natural. It is not weather or temperament. It is something else. Something wrong. Valdric stared at her. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever dared. You should be careful, he said quietly. Curiosity is dangerous in this castle. So is silence, Sena countered. The Ythrin nearly died because no one listened to it. I wonder how long you will last if no one listens to you. For a moment, something cracked in Valdric's frozen mask. Sena saw it. A flash of exhaustion, of desperation, of loneliness so profound it stole her breath. Then the mask closed again, and he turned toward the door. Continue your work with the beast, he said flatly. Report to me weekly. He was gone before she could respond. But that night, when Sena finally fell asleep, she dreamed of frost spreading across a beating heart. And when she woke, she found a fur blanket draped over her bed that had not been there before. He came back. Not the next night, but the night after. And the night after that. And the night after that. Valdric never announced his visits. He simply appeared at her door. Always late. Always with some thin excuse about checking her progress. But the excuses grew thinner as the nights wore on, and eventually he stopped offering them entirely. He just came. They talked. At first about the Ythrin, its moods, its memories, the slow process of rebuilding trust with a creature that had been betrayed for centuries. But gradually, the conversation shifted. You were branded, Valdric said one night, his eyes fixed on the fire. I saw the mark on your shoulder when you first arrived. What was your crime? Sena's hand moved unconsciously to her shoulder. Being born wrong. That is not a crime. It is in my father's house. She stared into the flames, her voice distant. I was born with a gift. The ability to speak to beasts. Brennick saw it as a curse. A mark of impurity. He branded me to ensure that no pack would ever accept me. Valdric was silent for a moment. Then quietly, my father tried to kill me when I was 7. Sena looked up sharply. He discovered that I was different, Valdric continued, his voice flat. Cold in ways that frightened him. He believed I was cursed, possessed by something unnatural. He tried to burn it out of me, and when that failed, he tried to drown me in the river. How did you survive? The Ythrin. Valdric's eyes flickered with something ancient and dark. It came to me that night, pulled me from the water, kept me warm until the servants found me. He laughed bitterly. My father was furious. He spent the rest of his life trying to sever my bond with the beast, and now the beast is trying to kill me in return. Sena absorbed this in silence. The pieces were beginning to fit together. The corrupted bond, the dying beast, the king who was freezing from the inside out. The Ythrin saved your life, she said slowly, and you have spent your life letting others torture it. Valdric flinched as if she had struck him. I did not... He stopped, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I inherited a kingdom built on that torture. I inherited chains and pits and handlers who knew nothing but cruelty. By the time I was old enough to question it, the damage was done. Is that why you brought me here? Sena asked quietly. To fix what you could not? Valdric turned to look at her, and for the first time, his mask was completely gone. He looked exhausted, haunted, young in a way that his cold exterior had hidden. I brought you here because I am running out of time, he said. The cold is spreading. Every day I feel less. Warmth, pain, pleasure. It is all fading. Soon, there will be nothing left but ice. Sena rose from her chair without thinking. She crossed the space between them and took his hand. It was like holding winter itself. His skin was so cold it burned. But she did not let go. You saved my life, she said. Whether you meant to or not, you pulled me from that auction and gave me a purpose. Let me help you. Valdric stared at their joined hands. Something shifted in his expression, confusion, wonder, and beneath it, a hunger so deep it frightened her. "You should not touch me," he said hoarsely. "The cold? I am not afraid of cold." "You should be." "Should be is not the same as am." Sena squeezed his hand gently. "I have spent my whole life being told what I should fear. I am tired of listening." Valdric's breath caught. For a moment he looked at her as if she were something impossible, a fire burning in a place where fire should not exist. Then, slowly, he raised his other hand and touched her face. His fingers were ice against her cheek. But his eyes were not cold at all. They were desperate and wanting and terrified in equal measure. "I do not know how to be warm," he whispered. "I have forgotten." "Then let me remind you," Sena said. She did not know who moved first. Perhaps both of them. Perhaps neither. But when his lips touched hers, she tasted winter and loneliness and something else. Something that burned beneath the frost like embers waiting for breath. The kiss deepened. His hands tangled in her hair. Her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, trying to warm him with her own body heat. When they finally broke apart, both of them were trembling. Valdric rested his forehead against hers, his breath ragged. "This is dangerous," he said. "I know. I cannot promise you anything. I cannot offer you love or permanence or—" "I am not asking for promises," Sena interrupted softly. "I am asking for tonight." He looked at her for a long moment. Then something in him seemed to break, not in a way that destroyed, but in a way that finally allowed something real to emerge. He kissed her again. And that night, in the warmth of her small room, Sena learned what it meant to hold winter in her arms and make it bloom. When dawn came, she woke to find him still beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist, his cold skin pressed against her warmth. He had stayed. And as Sena watched him sleep, watched the frost on his lashes melt in the firelight, she realized with a jolt of terror that she was falling in love with him. Not because he was a king, not because he had saved her, because beneath all that ice there was a man who had never been allowed to feel warmth, a man who was dying and did not know how to ask for help. "I am falling for him," she thought, her heart pounding, "and I do not know how to stop." Weeks passed, then months. The castle transformed around them in ways no one could explain. The servants whispered that the East Tower was warmer now, that the fires burned brighter, that the Alpha King himself seemed different. Less distant, less cold, less like a statue, and more like a man. Sena spent her days with the Ithrin and her nights with Valdric. The beast grew stronger under her care, its wounds healing, and its rage slowly giving way to something like peace. And Valdric smiled now. Small, rare smiles that she had to earn, but real. He came to her every night without fail. Sometimes they talked until dawn, sharing secrets they had never told anyone. Sometimes they simply held each other in the darkness, two wounded creatures learning what it meant to not be alone. The cold was still there. Sena felt it every time she touched him, that unnatural frost that lived beneath his skin. But it was receding. Slowly, inch by inch, warmth was winning. "The beast speaks of you differently now," Sena told him one evening as they lay tangled together in her bed. "It calls you the thawing king." Valdric laughed, a real laugh, rusty from disuse but beautiful. "I am not certain that is a compliment." "It is," Sena assured him. "It means the bond is healing. Whatever corruption twisted it before, you are undoing it. Both of you." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "The healers say the cold has stopped spreading. For the first time in years, it is not getting worse." Sena's heart leaped. "That is wonderful." "It is because of you." Valdric turned to face her, his gray eyes soft in the firelight. Before you came, I had accepted that I would die frozen, that there was no cure, no hope, no future. And now, he stopped. His hand trembled where it rested against her skin. Now I find myself wanting things I had sworn never to want, he finished quietly. Senya's breath caught. What things? He did not answer with words. Instead, he kissed her, slowly, deeply, with a tenderness that made her eyes sting. When he pulled back, his expression was raw in a way she had never seen. I want you, he said. Not just for nights, not just for warmth. I want you beside me. Always. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Valdric, Senya began. I know I said I would never care for you, he interrupted. I know I said you would only be a tool, but I was lying. To you and to myself. He took her face in his hands, his cold palms gentle against her cheeks. You are not a tool, Senya. You are the only thing that has made me feel alive in years. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She could not stop them. I love you, she whispered. I have loved you for weeks. I was afraid to say it. Why? Because you said you could never love me back. Valdric's expression crumpled. I was wrong, he said hoarsely. I was so wrong. I love you, Senya, He stopped mid-word. His eyes went wide. His hand flew to his chest. Valdric? Senya sat up, alarm flooding through her. What is it? What is wrong? He did not answer. He could not answer. Because suddenly, impossibly, frost was spreading across his chest. Not the slow creep of his usual cold. This was violent, aggressive, racing across his skin like fire in reverse. No, Senya gasped. No, no, no. She pressed her hands against his chest, trying to warm him, but the cold was stronger than anything she had ever felt. It burned her palms like acid. Valdric's lips were turning blue. His breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. Ice crystals formed on his lashes, his hair, and his fingertips. Senya. Her name was barely a whisper. The curse. I forgot. I forgot about the curse. What curse? Senya was crying now, her hands still pressed uselessly against his freezing chest. Valdric, tell me. What curse? But his eyes were already closing. His body convulsed once, twice. And then he went still. The cold exploded outward, coating the entire room in frost. The fire died instantly, snuffed out by an invisible force. Senya screamed his name, shaking him, begging him to wake up. He did not move. His skin was white as snow, his lips were blue as winter sky. And where his heart should have been beating, there was only silence. The Alpha King, the man she loved, was dying in her arms. And somewhere far below the castle, the Ithran began to howl. Senya held Valdric's frozen body against her chest, her screams echoing off the frost-covered walls. Help! She cried. Someone help me! The door burst open. Guards flooded in, followed by servants, healers, advisors, all of them stopping dead at the sight of their king lying motionless in the arms of the Omega they had dismissed as worthless. What have you done to him? One of the guards demanded, drawing his sword. I have done nothing. Senya's voice cracked. He collapsed. There is a curse. He said there was a curse. Lies. The guard advanced on her. You have bewitched him. You have... Stand down. The voice came from the doorway. An old woman stepped through, her silver hair braided down her back, her eyes sharp as broken glass. She wore the robes of a royal healer, and the guards immediately fell back at her approach. Matha, one of them said. The king is... I can see what the king is. Matha crossed to the bed, her gnarled hands reaching for Valdric's chest. She pressed her palm against the frost spreading across his skin, and her expression went grim. The curse has activated. I warned his father this would happen. I warned them all. What curse? Senya demanded. Tell me, please. Matha looked at her with something like pity. You truly do not know? No. He never told me. He started to say something, and then he told you he loved you. Matha's voice was flat. And the moment the words left his lips, the curse took hold. Senya's blood ran cold. I do not understand. Matha sat heavily on the edge of the bed, her eyes fixed on Valdric's frozen face. 300 years ago, the first Alpha King of Keldrath made a bargain with a dark witch. He wanted power, absolute power, the kind that could never be challenged. The witch gave him the Ythrin, a beast of immense strength bound to his bloodline forever. But power always comes with a price. What price? The king could never love. Matha's voice was hollow. None of his descendants could. The curse ensured that any king who felt true love would have his heart frozen solid, death within hours. Senya stared at her in horror. That cannot be. He is the Alpha King. Surely there must be a way to break it. There is no way. We have searched for centuries. Every healer, every mage, every witch in the realm has tried. Matha shook her head slowly. The curse is woven into the bond between king and beast. As long as the Ythrin exists, the curse exists. And the Ythrin cannot be killed. Believe me, they have tried. Senya's mind raced. The bond between king and beast, the corrupted connection, the Ythrin's rage, its pain, its desperate attempts to kill the very bloodline it was bound to. What if the bond could be healed? She asked suddenly. Not broken, healed. Restored to what it was before the corruption. Matha frowned. That is impossible. The original pact was destroyed generations ago. No one even remembers what it was. The Ythrin remembers. Both women turned to look at Senya. It has shown me memories, Senya continued, her voice urgent. Memories of the time before the corruption. The bond was not about domination, it was about balance, partnership. The beast gives strength to the king gives purpose to the beast. Neither dominates, neither serves. Matha's eyes widened. You can communicate with the Ythrin? Yes. That is why Valdric brought me here. I can speak to beasts. Senya gripped Valdric's cold hand, her jaw set with determination. If I can reach the Ythrin, if I can convince it to restore the original bond, perhaps the curse will break with it. Child, the Ythrin has been trying to kill the king for a year. What makes you think it will help save him? Because it is dying too. Senya met Matha's gaze steadily. The corruption is killing both of them. The beast knows this. It has been waiting for someone to understand. Matha studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Go, she said. I will keep him alive as long as I can. But you must hurry. The frost is spreading to his heart. Once it reaches the core, nothing will bring him back. Senya pressed a kiss to Valdric's frozen forehead. Hold on, she whispered. Please hold on. Then she ran. The pit was darker than she had ever seen it. The torches had gone out, and the cold that radiated from within was so intense that ice crystals formed on Senya's skin the moment she descended. Ythrin! She called into the blackness. I need you, please. For a terrible moment there was only silence. Then the beast emerged. It looked worse than before. Its scales cracked and bleeding, its golden eyes dimmed to a faint glow. The corruption was accelerating, feeding on the same curse that was killing Valdric. The frozen king is dying. The Ythrin's voice was weak in her mind. We feel it. The bond tears us apart, I know. Senya stepped closer, ignoring the cold that burned her lungs. That is why I am here. I need your help. Help? The beast laughed bitterly. We have been enemies for centuries. Why would we help the bloodline that tortured us? Because if Valdric dies, you die with him. Senya's voice was steady despite her terror. The bond works both ways. You know this. You have always known. The Ythrin went still. What do you propose, small wolf? Restore the original pact, the one your ancestors made before the corruption, balance instead of domination, partnership instead of slavery. That pact required willing hearts. On both sides, the kings of Keldrath have never been willing. Valdric is different. Sena took another step forward, close enough now to touch the beast's massive snout. He did not choose the corruption, he inherited it, and he has spent his whole life suffering for sins that were never his. She placed her hand on the Yithrin scales, feeling the cold pulse beneath. He saved you once, when he was a child, drowning in the river. You came to him. You pulled him from the water. The beast's eyes flickered. We remember. Then remember that the bond was not always broken. Remember that there was a time when king and beast were partners. Sena's voice broke. Help me save him. Please. I love him, and I cannot lose him. The Yithrin was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, it lowered its great head until its eyes were level with hers. There is a way, it said. But it will require sacrifice. Anything, Sena said immediately. I will give anything. Not your sacrifice, small wolf. Ours. The beast's golden eyes burned brighter, and suddenly Sena's mind was flooded with visions, images she did not understand, truths she had never been told. She saw her father, younger, desperate, standing before a hooded figure. She saw a bargain being struck. Power in exchange for betrayal. She saw Brennick learning of her gift, her ability to speak to beasts, and realizing that she was the key to controlling the Yithrin, controlling the king, controlling everything. She saw him branding her not to protect the world from her curse, but to ensure she could never use her gift against him, to keep her weak and broken until he could sell her to the highest bidder. And she saw the truth. Brennick had not sold her secret to Valdric out of cruelty alone. He had sold her to Valdric's enemies, rivals who wanted the Alpha King dead. Valdric's spies had discovered the plot by chance, a whispered conversation in a tavern, a name that should not have been spoken. He had acted on instinct, outbidding the conspirators without knowing why this particular Omega mattered, only that she did. He had saved her without even knowing what he was saving her from. The vision faded. Sena staggered backward, gasping for breath. My father, she whispered. He planned this. All of it. Yes. The Yithrin's voice was heavy with ancient sorrow. The corruption did not begin with the kings of Keldrath. It began with those who sought to control them. Your bloodline and ours have been pawns in a game older than either of us understood. Sena's hands clenched into fists. Rage burned through her, hot and clean and clarifying. Brennick had tried to destroy her, had tried to destroy Valdric, had tried to corrupt a bond that was never meant to be corrupted. But he had failed, because she was still standing, and she was not afraid anymore. Tell me what I need to do, Sena said. Tell me how to break the curse. The Yithrin's eyes blazed like twin suns. Speak the word, it commanded, the true word, the one that binds all beasts to all souls. Speak it not to us alone. Speak it to the king. Let the bond flow through you into him. Will it work? It will burn, the Yithrin warned. Your gift was never meant to be used this way. It may destroy you. Sena thought of Valdric lying frozen in her bed, of the man who had smiled at her in the firelight, of the king who had stayed through the night when he had promised he never would. Then let it burn, she said. Sena climbed from the pit with the Yithrin's power thrumming through her veins. She could feel it. The bond, ancient and vast, stretching between beast and king like a thread of golden light. It was damaged, corrupted, twisted by centuries of abuse. But it was not destroyed. It could still be saved. She ran through the corridors, her feet pounding against frozen stone. Servants pressed themselves against walls as she passed. Guards shouted questions she did not stop to answer. Nothing mattered except reaching him in time. When she burst into her chambers, Matha looked up with hollow eyes. "The frost has reached his heart," the old healer said quietly. "I cannot hold it back any longer. I am sorry, child. He is not dead yet." Senya crossed to the bed, taking Valdrick's frozen hand in hers. His skin was white as bone, his lips were the color of a winter sky. But beneath the ice, she could still feel the faintest flutter of a heartbeat. He was fighting. Even now, he was fighting. "Everyone out," Senya commanded. Matha hesitated. "Child, what are you planning to—" "Out!" Senya's voice carried an authority she had never possessed before. The authority of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Now." The healer met her eyes for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly and ushered the servants and guards from the room. The door closed. Senya was alone with the man she loved. She climbed onto the bed, pressing her body against his frozen form, wrapping her arms around him despite the cold that burned her skin. She could feel the ice spreading, could feel the curse fighting to claim him completely. "I am here," she whispered against his ear. "I am not leaving. Do you hear me, Valdrick? I am not letting you go." She closed her eyes and reached for the gift her father had tried to burn out of her. The power she had hidden her entire life. The word that could bind any beast to any soul. But this time, she did not speak it to a beast. She spoke it to a man. The word tore from her throat like fire. It was not sound. It was meaning. It was connection. It was everything she felt for him poured into a single syllable that resonated in the deepest part of his frozen soul. "I see you. I honor you. You are not alone." The effect was immediate. Light exploded through the room, golden and warm and blinding. The frost on the walls began to melt. The fire in the hearth roared back to life, and beneath her hands, she felt Valdrick's heart begin to beat. But the power did not stop there. It flowed through him, following the bond that connected king to beast, racing down through stone and shadow until it reached the pit below. Senya heard the Ithran's roar, not of rage this time, but of release. The corruption shattered. The bond reformed. Balance, partnership. Neither dominating, neither serving. The way it was always meant to be. Senya felt the change like a second sunrise in her chest. Warmth flooded through her, through Valdrick, through the beast, through the very stones of the castle. Centuries of twisted magic unraveled in an instant, burned away by a power older than curses and stronger than hate. Then the light faded, and Valdrick opened his eyes. They were still gray, but the frost was gone. The terrible cold that had haunted them was replaced by something warm and human and alive. "Ki, Senya." Her name was a rasp on his lips, but it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. "I am here." Tears streamed down her face. "I am here. You are alive. The curse is broken." Valdrick stared at her with wonder. His hand, warm now, truly warm, rose to touch her cheek. "You saved me," he breathed. We saved each other." Senya pressed her forehead to his, laughing through her tears. "You stubborn, impossible man. Did you really think I would let you die?" "I did not think anyone would care if I did." "Then you were wrong." She kissed him, softly, gently, tasting the warmth that had replaced the winter. "I love you. I will always love you. And I am never letting you go." Valdrick pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair. His shoulders shook with something that might have been sobs. "I love you too," he whispered. "More than I ever thought possible." They held each other for a long time, wrapped in warmth and firelight and the impossible miracle of survival. When they finally emerged from the chamber, the entire castle was waiting. The servants stared at their king, at the color in his cheeks, the warmth in his eyes, the way he held the Omega's hand as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "The curse is broken," Valdric announced, his voice carrying through the hall. "Not just for me, for the entire bloodline. My children and their children after them will never suffer as I have suffered." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "And the woman beside me," Valdric continued, turning to look at Sena with an expression that made her heart soar, "is no longer a servant. She is my mate, my queen, my equal in all things." Senya's breath caught. "Valdric, you do not have to. I want to." He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles with a tenderness that silenced every whisper in the hall. "I want everyone to know what you mean to me, what you have done for this kingdom, what you have done for my soul." Tears spilled down Senya's cheeks. Around them, the court began to bow, slowly at first, then all at once. A wave of acknowledgement for the woman who had done what no one else could. She had tamed the untamable. Not the beast, the king. 3 months later, Sena stood in the courtyard as guards dragged her father through the gates. Valdric had sent soldiers the moment he learned the truth. Brennick Viel, the man who had worn the title of father like a mask for cruelty, was dragged before the king in chains, stripped of his lands and his lies. "You sold your own daughter to my enemies," Valdric said, his voice cold as the winter he had left behind. "You conspired to have me killed. You corrupted a sacred bond for your own gain." Brennick sneered up at him. "She was worthless, a cursed abomination. I did what any father would do." "No." Sena stepped forward, and Brennick flinched at the sight of her. "You did what a coward would do. You saw power you could not control, and instead of nurturing it, you tried to destroy it." She knelt before him, meeting his eyes without fear. "You branded me," she said quietly. "You told me I was an abomination. You sold me to die." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And yet, here I stand, queen of a kingdom, mate of a king, bonded to a beast that would die for me. Tell me, father, who is the abomination now?" Brennick's face twisted with fury, but before he could speak, Valdric gestured to the guards. "Take him to the cells. He will stand trial for treason." The king's eyes were hard. "And when he is found guilty, and he will be found guilty, he will spend the rest of his life in the same pit where he intended my mate to die." The guards dragged Brennick away, his screams echoing off the stone walls. Sena watched him go, feeling something loosen in her chest. Not satisfaction, not revenge, closure. Valdric's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. "Are you all right?" "Yes." She leaned into his warmth, his true warmth, the warmth that would never fade. "I am finally free." That evening, Sena descended into the pit one last time. The Ithran waited for her, not in chains now, but free. Its scales gleamed in the torchlight, healthy and whole. Its golden eyes burned with intelligence and something that looked almost like affection. Small wolf. The beast's voice was warm in her mind. "You have returned. I wanted to thank you." Sena reached out, pressing her palm against its snout. "For trusting me. For helping me save him." "You saved us all," the Ithran corrected gently. "The bond is restored. The corruption is gone. For the first time in 300 years, we are whole." Sena smiled. "What will you do now? Without the chains, without the handlers. You are free to leave, if you wish." The beast was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, it lowered its great head in a bow. "We will stay," it said. "The king is our partner. Now, not our master. And you." Its golden eyes gleamed. "You are our voice. Where else would we go?" Tears pricked Senya's eyes. She wrapped her arms around the Yithran's massive neck, feeling the warmth that pulsed beneath its scales. "Then we stay together," she whispered. All of us. A family. The beast rumbled with something that sounded almost like laughter. Family, it agreed. Yes, we like that word. Months passed, then years. Sena gave Valdric 3 children, 2 daughters with their mother's gift for speaking to beasts, and a son with his father's gray eyes and warm heart. The curse never touched them. The cold never came. The Ithrin became the kingdom's protector instead of its prisoner. It guarded the borders, watched over the royal children, and terrified visiting diplomats who had heard the old stories but did not expect the beast to bow to the queen. And Valdric, the king who had been frozen his entire life, learned what it meant to be warm. He smiled now, laughed, held his children on his lap, and told them stories about a brave Omega who had walked into a monster's den and tamed it with a single word. What was the word, Papa? His youngest daughter asked one night, her eyes wide with wonder. Valdric looked at Sena across the room. She was sitting by the fire, their son dozing in her arms, firelight dancing in her dark hair. She met his gaze and smiled. The word, Valdric said softly, was love. Not the word itself, but what it meant. He stroked his daughter's hair gently. I see you. I honor you. You are not alone. That is what love truly is. His daughter wrinkled her nose. That does not sound very magical. That is because you are young. Valdric kissed her forehead, pulling her close. When you are older, you will understand. Love is the most powerful magic there is. It can break curses. It can tame beasts. It can melt the coldest heart. He looked at Sena again, and his eyes were full of everything he had never been able to feel before she came into his life. It saved me, he whispered, and I will spend the rest of my days grateful for it. That night, after the children were asleep and the castle was quiet, Valdric and Sena stood on the balcony overlooking the mountains. The moon was full, the air was warm, and somewhere below them, the Ithrin slept peacefully for the first time in 300 years. Do you ever regret it? Valdric asked quietly. Being bought at an auction? Being thrown into a pit with a monster? Sena turned to look at him, this man who had been ice and was now fire, who had been alone and was now surrounded by love. No, she said, because it brought me to you. He kissed her then, soft and slow and full of promise. And as the moon rose over Castle Keldrath, 2 wounded souls who had found each other in the darkness held tight to the light they had built together. No beast ever bowed to the Alpha King, until she whispered one word, and everything changed.